Hey, what is up, everybody? Hope you had a great weekend. Thanks for joining us on the Daily Drive on this Monday. My name is Breaux, and I hope you're getting some time this summer to break your normal routine a little bit. Maybe catch some more sunsets, or hit a few more golf balls, or mow some grass, or do a cannonball into a lake, go on a hike, lay in a hammock, read a book, enjoy some cookouts with friends. Man, I hope you're having a great summer. We've been talking this summer about 5 easy ways to wreck your life by walking through the journal of a guy who did, in fact, do that. King Solomon shares this vulnerable, honest reflection of his life, saying to anybody who will listen, if you want to wreck your life, let me tell you how. Step number 1, let pleasure drive you. Step number 2, let success consume you. Step number 3, isolate yourself. And today he reveals step number 4. If you want to wreck your life like I did, then make sure that you reject God's wisdom. Let me ask you, what's the most dangerous stretch of road you've ever driven? Now, I have driven the freeways of L.A. and Chicago a bunch, and it is like NASCAR, man. It is crazy. Or maybe you have driven the incredibly bad roads of Haiti, or maybe you've been on some dirt roads in Africa, or up some mountain roads in Colorado, or maybe you've even courageously driven through Dallas at rush hour. There's this stretch of road in central Kentucky near where I live, affectionately known as, quote-unquote, the curves. I've traveled this road probably hundreds of times in my life. It's a unique drive, a beautiful drive that cuts through the limestone cliffs along the Kentucky River from just outside of Wilmore, Kentucky to Harrisburg, Kentucky. It is one of the curviest roads I have ever driven. There are no real shoulders. There are trees right on the road. There's jagged cliffs right up against the road. And it seems more narrow than a normal road. In fact, it could be pretty treacherous, especially in the wintertime. But still, tons of people travel it every single day. Even semis go on this road. And when you meet a semi around one of those 15-mile-an-hour curves, it gets pretty interesting. The only thing that gives you much comfort going through the curves is the strategically placed guardrails. Now, according to the National Highway Administration, folks, by its definition, guardrails are a system designed to keep vehicles from straying into areas of danger. And for the most part, guardrails are invisible. We can see them, but when we're driving, we seldom notice them. They're just there. We kind of take them for granted, really, looking past them as we drive along, checking out the scenery. But they're there, strategically placed along the way, keeping us from driving into some very dangerous areas. And you know what about guardrails? They're not placed like in the danger zone. They're planted just before those places that could really mess us up. And judging by all the dents and many of those guardrails on that curvy road in Kentucky, they've probably saved a lot of lives through the years. And I was thinking that when we look back on some of our deepest regrets, some of our greatest failures, some of our biggest wrecks, most of us would say, man, most of those things could have been avoided if only there had been some guardrails in my life. If I had just established some boundaries in my life, if there would have been some guardrails to bump up against to warn me there's danger on the other side, I might have saved myself and a lot of other people a bunch of pain. Now, again, those guardrails are not in the danger zone. They're strategically placed just before those places to keep us on the road. And gang, that's the way God's wisdom works. One of my constant prayers is that you would get to know the true and living God. I mean, really know him, not some skewed picture of God as like a demanding drill sergeant or some sadistic professor with a big red pen marking up your test score, taking great delight in telling you how stupid you are. I've been praying that maybe the perception that you might have had as God as an abusive or absentee father is beginning to fade away as you get to know him as your Abba, as your daddy. You see, the Bible sums up the character of God in 3 words. God is love. Not God is loving, not love is one of the many attributes of God's character. God is love. Everything else about him flows from that truth. His faithfulness flows from that. His compassion flows from that. His kindness, his truth, even his justice flows from his perfect love, his unfailing love, his unending love. Love is not simply an emotion God feels. It's not just a verb that God practices. It's who he is. And since that's true, wouldn't you expect a father with unfailing love to set some boundaries, to construct some guardrails to keep his kids safe? I mean, he wouldn't be a very good parent to know all the potential consequences of certain things and not warn you and me about them. I mean, what kind of dad would he be to know all about the curves and the cliffs and the danger zones, to know how badly we could screw up our life, and then throw us the keys and let us drive full speed into those areas, totally unobstructed, without any limits, any warning signs, or any guardrails? That would be one lousy dad. Well, the good news is God's an awesome parent. And from his unfailing love comes this amazing gift called wisdom. Wisdom that we can bump up against like a guardrail that will not only keep us from wrecking our life, but will guide us onto the right roads. It will serve as an internal GPS, if you will, that will lead us to real life. And here's the cool thing. That kind of wisdom is available, amazingly available. And again, the source is our loving Creator. We read back in James chapter 1, verse 5 a few weeks ago, if you need wisdom, ask our generous God. He'll give it to you. Remember when God told a young King Solomon that he would give him anything he asked for, and Solomon, feeling totally inadequate to the leadership task before him, tells God, all right, God, I need your wisdom. Now, he wasn't asking God, I want you to make me smart or increase my IQ, or I just long to be the most brilliant man ever. No, he asked for godly wisdom so he could live and lead well. He wanted discernment to make right decisions, both personal and leadership decisions for the whole nation. And so God, impressed by his humility and his selfless request, tells him that he would make him incredibly wise. Before Solomon ended up rejecting God's wisdom in favor of his own, he wrote this in Proverbs chapter 2. For the Lord grants wisdom. From his mouth come knowledge and understanding. He grants a treasure of common sense to the honest. He is a shield to those who walk with integrity. He guards the path of the just and protects those who are faithful to him. Then you will understand what is right, just, and fair, and you will find the right way to go. He said, just ask him. He will give you the kind of wisdom that will protect your life and lead you in the right way to go. Now, it's up to you and me to use that wisdom as guardrails. But gang, it's available for everybody who asks. Remember when we started this journey, we skipped to the end of the journal, and we saw Solomon's conclusion to this, as he called it, meaningless life under the sun? He said, now all has been heard. Here's the conclusion of the matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the duty of every human being. The book of Ecclesiastes is basically him saying, I wish I'd have done that all my days, but I rejected the gift of wisdom God gave me. I plowed through his loving guardrails. I did life on my own terms, and I wrecked my life. I wish I would have written on my heart the words of my dad David, who said, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. All who follow his precepts have good understanding. To him belongs eternal praise. So I'm writing all of this down, trying to tell you my dad was right. Getting to know God and respecting his authority and living in the awareness of his greatness, surrendering to his leadership every day and driving your life between his loving guardrails, that's where true wisdom comes. Before he wrecked his life, back when Solomon was walking with God, he wrote things like Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight. And then verses 7 and 8, don't be impressed with your own wisdom. Instead, fear the Lord and turn away from evil. Then you will have healing for your body and strength for your bones. But along the way, he tragically stopped doing that. He started being impressed with his own wisdom, started trusting his own intellect. As a result, he had fewer and fewer boundaries in his life. He ignored God's wisdom, followed his senses, his appetites, leaned on his own understanding, and went flying around the curves with no guardrails in place, and not only wrecked his life, but the future of the entire nation that God had entrusted him with. So let's heed his advice today. Let's ask God for wisdom today. And instead of seeing God's ways as restrictive and fun-stealing, let's recognize them for what they are. Loving, preventative guardrails placed there to keep us safe and to enable us to live the kind of life Jesus called life to the full. Hope you have a great day today. I'll see you back tomorrow.